I'd like to call the meeting to order. Before we start, I just would like to make a special plea to everyone to talk loudly, to make sure that you're talking into your microphone, to make sure that not only those of us in this room can hear, but also anyone who is watching and listening to us remotely can hear as well. So the purpose of today's meeting is to consider candidates for Superintendent Director of Minuteman. And I know that this is a responsibility that we all take very, very seriously, and I'm looking forward to our discussion tonight. But our first order of business is public comment, and I'd like to ask Superintendent Buquillin to comment on our public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair and school committee members. As the process for this has been very transparent and open, the school committee asked for public comment from different stakeholder groups in regards to this process that you're involved in. In order for those comments to be part of the public record, I asked that they be accepted as part of public comment tonight. And I have 62 pages, which I'm about to read. No, I'm not doing it. Yeah. But they will become part of the minutes of this meeting and available to the public. So thank you for your work and I wish you luck.
Thank you very much, Ed. And the school committee has received copies of the public comment and has had time to review them. So, Ed, this is not a goodbye, but I want to say how nice it is to see you here and to have you, as part of this meeting.
Well, I'm going to excuse myself if that's okay.
Yeah, that is
I'll be
okay.
available tonight and for a while.
Great.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we talk about our process for tonight and our process for the discussion, I'd like to take a moment to really thank everyone who has been part of this process. So starting with the steering committee, I really appreciate the very thoughtful deliberations that everyone on the steering committee took part in and approached this with. And a very, very special thank you to Ford Spalding, who has chaired the committee and who has so ably led us throughout the process. So thank you so much, Ford. I'd also like to thank everyone who met with the candidates, the students, staff, faculty, family members, community leaders, advisory board members, industry leaders. I really appreciate your participation and your very thoughtful questions. I want to thank everyone who submitted public comment. I really appreciate our 62 pages of public comment and appreciate everyone taking the time to share your thoughts with the school committee. I want to thank our search consultant, Glenn Kuchar from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, for your guidance and help. And also, I really want to thank our candidates, especially our 3 finalists, for all sharing of themselves with us. And finally, I want to thank my fellow school committee members for your dedication to Minuteman, your thoughtfulness throughout this process, especially in developing our superintendent profile that has been and will continue to guide us through this process. So I would like to talk about our process for discussion. And if there is no objection, what I would like to do to begin the discussion is to go around the room and have each school committee member share your thoughts about the candidates and about who you think is the person who best matches that superintendent profile that we developed, and therefore the best person to lead Minuteman going forward. So we will take time to, I'll start to my right, we'll take time to go around the room After that, we'll see if anyone has any other comments that you'd like to make. If we need to, we can continue taking turns going around and sharing our thoughts. When we get to the point where we have finished our discussion, if we are ready to make a motion, that we'll have our motion in our usual process, and the vote will require, a successful vote will require a majority of the weighted vote present in order to pass in accordance with our regional agreement. So that's the process that we'll use. That's how our vote will take place. Before we start in, again, I have one more thing. I just want to remind everyone that, of course, all of our deliberations are in open meeting tonight. And I just, again, want to remind everyone that each of the candidates has subjected themselves to the challenge of being a public figure during the process. Tonight's discussion, of course, is in public, and everything we say is a matter of public record. Praise for the candidates and criticism of them become available for anyone to assess. And even well-intentioned remarks may be repeated, reported, might be taken out of context when a future employer considers one of our candidates in the future. And for those reasons, and I know everyone will do that, I just want to remind everyone to use your best judgment and discretion in explaining your preferences and telling the public why you support a particular individual and or why you're not supporting others. Negative comments which may represent your opinion and which are your right to present, can attach to a candidate, not just as an opinion, but as fact, and damage their reputations. So again, I just want to remind everyone to be mindful of our conversation. And if there is no objection, what I'd like to do is start our discussion and having Steve kick it off, and then we'll go around the room and continue to have discussion until we're ready to make a motion.
So this isn't like the NFL. I can't defer to the second half.
Actually, you can defer. I'm glad you asked that question, because if you are not ready, you want to think a little bit more, you can pass on to the next person. So, and there will always be a chance to come back. So you said it in jest, but it actually was an important question. So thanks, Steve.
Okay, well, I'm not going to defer. So I spent a lot of time over the past few days, rewatching our interviews, watching the other videos that Ford had forwarded to us, reading materials, reading the profile. And first, I just want to congratulate Ford and everybody that put the interview process together, because I was a town manager for 41 years. I never went through anything like this. I mean, I probably wouldn't have gotten a job if I'd gone through something like this, but it was really extensive, and the candidates had to be really exhausted at the end of the day, just what they went through. But I'm sure a lot of us feel the same way. If we could clone all three candidates, because each one brings something different, I think, to the table. And you kind of have Kevin's charisma and Kathleen's vision and Amy's kind of institutional knowledge, and you've got all three things that could, one person would be just absolutely amazing. And as I watched the videos and we read the materials, I was flip-flopping all over the place. It's really hard, and it's a shame you have to pick one over the others. But kind of where I'm at right now, in my analysis, I would pick Kathleen Dawson number one. I think her vision, her experience, but what particularly struck me was the document she passed out that night, the call to action, kind of how she would spend her first umpteen days and months on the job. That's something that I like to ask candidates, and she was ahead of the game and really given some thought of how she would approach Minuteman. I would put Amy second. I think her institutional knowledge has a lot of value, and Kevin I would put third, and nothing really negative. It's just my kind of gut reactions. And I was a little troubled about some of the past, particularly the financial issues in that one school district. He did explain it, but it's something to be mindful of. But I guess in the final analysis, that's the way I would rank the three candidates right now. And it's not a hard number one or a hard number two, and I think in the end, whomever may get majority of the votes, I would certainly make a motion that we make the decision unanimous, because I think it's very important for whoever the candidate is, that know they have the 100% full support of the school board.
So my comments are a little longer than Steve's.
I didn't write that.
He's good at extemporaneous speaking. I am not. So I want to first say how impressed I was by the empathy that was shown by all of the three candidates. They are uniformly courteous to everyone throughout the whole hierarchy of the school. And this was an outstanding group of dedicated educators, and therefore it was difficult to choose among them. I had the same problem that Steve did. Each one brings a focused group of skills and experience to the table. We received written comments from 9 individuals who signed their name, and there were 33 anonymous comments. And of those, each candidate was the subject of roughly 8 comments, and 9 comments spoke about more than one candidate, 2 or 3 people. In addition, we received comments from 3 students. I attended all of the screening committee meetings, the school committee meetings, the 5 p.m. sessions, and I viewed the videos of all 3 meetings with the staff, and I read all the comments. Regarding the school committee, which is making this choice, I am proud to be part of the school committee. I have a lifelong interest in improving educational opportunities in our country, and I've been part of this effort for almost 20 years at this school. I find myself amongst like-minded individuals on this committee, and there is none of the rancor or politics that often dominate such committees. It has been a pleasure to help this school progress. It's been an honor, and it has been a joy. In creating the superintendent profile, this school committee was thoughtful about both the internal needs of the school and the external facing role of the next superintendent. The need to be engaged with businesses and organizations outside the school that can help the school be sustained for its current students and grow for the future. This was encapsulated in items 8 in the profile. Institutional development is a complex puzzle, and the next separate superintendent will need to bring several ongoing projects to fruition for current and near-term students, and also start new projects for the future of both Minuteman and MTI. By the way, it's harder to read a speech with the mask on. So if I faint, someone should come over and like. The key to success for both Minuteman and for whichever candidate is selected will be that the school committee and also the school community at large will need to work collaboratively with the new superintendent to make their entry and their work a success. This collaboration is something we all will be involved in and watching for. I think we can safely say that it takes many villages to support a regional school district. I believe there are 2 candidates who have the necessary public-facing skills for the superintendent role that is needed now. They have both been administrators in multiple school districts, and they are able to reflect on what they learned from those experiences. Interestingly, both of those candidates have backgrounds in mathematics, which will help them to manage the municipal fund accounting that is required for a district like Minuteman. Incidentally, I think all 3 candidates would work well together as their superpowers are complementary. Kathleen Dawson meets all the criteria of the superintendent profile. On her own initiative, she presented the committee with a template-based written entry plan, which it is from a template, and she says so. And I did find other people who had used the same template. But it demonstrated her ability to organize, to think strategically, to present a positive impression to decision makers like us, and consider multiple projects simultaneously. She has been a teacher and an administrator at the building and district level in 3 different states. One of her references remarked on her follow through and ability to see a project or a task to its conclusion. And another said she is detail oriented in ways that help committee complete tasks and projects so they got done in the best way possible. yet she was willing to restart or revise to make things work. This ability to plan and to complete projects is a rare ability. It's the completion that I'm focused on. She is an engaging, well-prepared public speaker with experience being the outward-facing representative of administration. She has worked with banks, pitched projects to investors and to senators, and networked to support her projects. She is assertive, and people seem to like working with her. She has worked extensively in CTE, and she has complex ideas about the future-ready workforce. Specifically, she mentioned artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, drone technology, gaming, the metaverse, geospatial technology, renewable energy, electric vehicles, hydroponics, and underwater welding. Equally importantly, she is thoughtful about the current generation of students, their interest in the climate, and their emergence as a civic-minded generation. And actually, her interest in this and how to respect that focus and tap into it is one of the things I liked most about her. They are a civic-minded generation. She has concrete ideas about how to improve networking with alumni and businesses, particularly relating to upskilling, and even for adults who are transitioning out of the workforce. She would like to train the teachers who are needed to staff the emerging career pathways. She gave us examples of how she used data to assess program success and then promote program revisions, one in literacy and one in middle college program that was not producing sufficient graduates. She has worked in multi-district schools in other states and with a board of commissioners. There are many complex systems of administering schools throughout the country, very large counties of hundreds of square miles, BOCES, districts, et cetera. And she is a quick study. I think she would be able to grasp quickly the nature of the regional school district system here. Going on to Kevin, I have known Kevin McCaskill for several years, having served with him in the high quality college and career pathways Perkins stakeholder group. Perkins 5 is the current federal funding for VOCAT. I know him to be a tireless supporter of CTE and a person who will speak truth to power. Kevin meets all of the criteria of the superintendent profile. He has also been a professional teacher and a principal, and he's been an administrator at 2 vocational schools and at the district level in Boston. He is a masterful, inspirational public speaker with the ability to command a room. His knowledge of the Massachusetts vocational frameworks and the interdependent and sometimes siloed boards and organizations that govern Massachusetts public schools was the deepest of any of the candidates. You will recall he invited us to talk about Strand 3, which in the terminology of DESE is a crosswalk between vocational technical frameworks and academic curriculum framework standards. He also has extensive connections with Massachusetts organizations and initiatives through his work with Madison Park, the Department of Education, and his service at the North Bennett Street School. And when I took a course at North Bennett Street School, I encountered kids from Madison Park who were working there. He is connected to several unions and to major employers in construction and healthcare. He has a superpower of significantly expanding enrollment, both at Madison Park and at Putnam, which are challenging assignments in schools which are widely known to have organizational problems that long preceded his arrival at both schools. He shared many ideas regarding innovation and career pathways, including building automation, which requires coding, lighting, smart building technology, heating, cooling, and irrigation systems, green technology, cybersecurity, solar power, and windmills, which touches on electrical, and he had ideas for college and university partnerships. Finally, Amy Perrault. I have known Amy Perrault through her years at Minuteman, most recently working on the policy subcommittee of the school committee. I know her to be a thoughtful and dedicated champion of CTE and a compassionate supporter of students and staff. She is a great member of the Minuteman team. She has had a critical role in restructuring efforts inside Minuteman, the development of the academy model, and she manages special education, nursing, and HR. She is proud of delivering a consistent high level of services to students. She would like to revitalize the advisory boards so that the relationship is more mutually beneficial. Likewise, she believes MTI, which she noted is overall a young program, can be much more integrated and can be expanded beyond the member towns. She recognizes this as a huge opportunity that needs a plan. She's been involved in grant applications and in asking for donations, and it can explain how an investment can be mutually beneficial to a business and to the school. She is active in a national social worker organization and MAVA, which she believes is the most appropriate voice for CTE administrators. The superintendent profile, which was developed by the school committee over the course of several meetings, is future-focused. The committee is looking for a proven administrator and communicator, a thought leader in workforce development who will manage the school, its curriculum, shops, financials, and physical plant to support students into the future, gaining extensive support of businesses and legislators to move this school forward. For this particular role, and considering the superpowers needed to advance the school at this time, I would support offering the job to Dr. Kathleen Dawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and also thank you, Ford, to you and the committee. You assembled a huge amount of data for us, and I know it was an exhaustive process. So thank you for that, and of course, thanks to the three finalists that we had an opportunity to meet. I concur with everything our colleague Ms. DeLuca has said. So how to weigh the relative qualities of the three excellent finalists that we had the opportunity to get to meet. I was most impressed with the fundamental knowledge of Minuteman and the vocational education and in organizing programs within the walls of the school that Dr. Perrault brings us. And she would be a good superintendent. I think where we weigh the pluses and minuses in her background are simply the things that she hasn't had the opportunity to demonstrate yet. The budgeting at the district level, especially. Her responses to the questions about matters of budget, matters of going out into the community, appearing before town boards and town meetings and things like that, being the political advocate. I'm sure she can do it. She hasn't had the chance yet to develop it, to give us her words of experience in that. It's not a detriment to her that she simply hasn't had the opportunity in the roles that have come to her yet. I think she will do well. I think she will be an excellent superintendent someday. I think that Mr. McCaskill, as I think was suggested by Mr. Ledoux, is a force of nature. This seems to be the job that he has spent his entire life getting ready for. And I felt like, he would be a star. He was proven at increasing the profile and enrollment and enthusiasm. His teachers at Madison Park loved him. His students at Madison Park loved him. And it's not for any sort of hero worship. It's for the proven skills that he has as a leader. I remain concerned, though, with Madison Park's record over the recent years as a seriously underperforming school. It has tremendous challenges. And yet, if you bring your full range of qualities and capabilities and knowledges and skills and experiences and place them in front of us on the table, I have to say that that's a problem for me. I completely accept Mr. McCaskill's answers to our rather pointed questions of the financial malfeasance that occurred during his watch. He told us that he wasn't watching carefully enough, and he took full responsibility for that. I accept that. It's a sin of omission, not to be repeated, he said. And yet, right there at the top of his resume was an omission that I thought, surely there's got to be some other answer than I simply forgot to finish this program of graduate study that I started 14 and a half years ago. Whatever the reason is, it's a minor thing, but I'm trying to weigh the pluses and minuses of each candidate. And it was a detail that stays in my mind, that it's a matter left undone. And that's what I would be concerned about. Even with all of his wonderful capabilities that he was, happy to demonstrate for us. It was a pleasure meeting him. I think Dr. Dawson will stay in my mind mostly for the comments that reflected the desires we've been saying for so long about wanting to broaden Minuteman's reach, getting our message out, which I know Mr. McCaskill could do also, but she approaches it from a different way, totally organic, totally herself. She mentioned it and went on. She said, I know what it's like to be the only person in the room who looks like me. We've been looking for someone who can take that message and turn it into an action plan. And by gosh, she knows how to turn things into action plans. All up and down, every one of her assignments, every one of her job opportunities has been taking an action plan, putting it into effect, making it work, and making it work well. Were we concerned that there seemed to be a lot of stops along her path and that she didn't have any one where she could say, yeah, that's where I set down my roots? I think she had a perfectly reasonable and explicative answer. Her roots are here, and she's been working her way back to an opportunity here. She considers the Boston area her home, and this, she said, would be her homecoming. And to me, that's a very powerful endorsement of someone's desire to set down roots in a particular place. So for those reasons, for the many wonderful skills that Alice has enumerated, I go along with her estimation and the general impression also that Steve came up with just as briefly. I would support the candidacy of Dr. Dawson.
Not sure there's much left to say. And I concur with all of the other school committee members. I think that each candidate would have brought something different and spectacular to Minuteman. But if we look at what we put together and what we needed and what we wanted, it was an outward facing face of Minuteman to promote us, to put us out in the communities and beyond, and build our reputation and build our essence. And I think my candidate would be Dr. Dawson as well, because I think she met more than the other two all of what we wanted going forward, given our candidate profile. That's all.
So much has been said. I'd like to start, I'm going to try not to echo what's already been said. So that's why I've been crossing things off on my page. I would like to give, we are in Lincoln and Lexington, and we're all from the colonial era. So I'd like to give a colonial Minuteman hurrah to the entire process. This has really been, it's really been very humbling to be part of this. It's an honor. And it's just been outstanding, the amount of effort and energy and passion that has gone into this by so many people. There's two or three I'd like to also give a shout out to. I'd like to give a shout out to the culinary crew for the sweets at these meetings. From Mr. Ruderman and myself, these are our first in-person meetings because we were able to join the committee during current events. So everyone's been on Zoom. So that has been an extra added pleasure. And also to the media crew, because they really helped make this process even more transparent so everyone could take part, no matter where you were. And in addition to everyone else, to Ms. Fignelia for being the glue to keep us all together behind the scenes. So thank you all. But again, gratitude to the candidates. I truly learned something from each of you. You all are indeed change agents. You have each moved the ball forward to the benefit of your students by facing various district challenges. Some have overlapped, some have been unique. I appreciate your energy, your enthusiasm, skill sets, and the professional qualifications. A strong work ethic is not lacking among any of you. I do feel there is no wrong answer given the qualities of Dr. Perrault, Mr. McCaskill, and Dr. Dawson. All are focused on the best interests of our students. All have the experience behind them to guide the ship. In totality, one candidate presented as the best fit for the Minuteman School Committee. And to do this, it's really to meet the growing mental health needs of our students, faculty, and staff as we learn to live again after COVID. To calm the waters with our member communities, that's a sticker shock, although expected, of our new school assessments hits home budgets. To continue to expand our space for additional students and perhaps add additional member communities and new cutting edge programming. In all the concrete examples that have been listed by my colleagues tonight and by the candidates. So Lexington's choice is Dr. Dawson. I have to say, I was conflicted. I agree with Mr. Ledoux. I could easily have voted for Dr. Perrault. So I would like to put, just make a small statement saying that I don't want this choice for Lexington's vote to diminish the role of Dr. Perrault in her current position. I really hope the new administrative team will be anchored by her. So, thank you.
Introduction, I want to say that this is my third Minuteman superintendent search, and it is the most professional, and it is one of the most professional operations I've ever seen in my life. So thank you, Ford, and thank you the other people who participated in it. And I was also extremely impressed by all the questions I saw from the public and on the videos of the faculty meetings and the community meetings with the candidate. I'm also going to vote for Dr. Dawson, and I want to mention kind of my reasoning. So we have a lot of criteria in our superintendent profile. I broke it down into 4 main categories. 1, don't mess up. It took us 15 years to get here. And so I have to have a candidate who I think is going to understand that and make it work. And under don't mess it up, there are about a dozen things that you have to do to not mess it up. And I pulled 2 out that I kept in my brain the most, which is a focus on kids and the management of and respect for faculty and staff. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be conflict or disagreement, but there has to be that kind of respect for them. Those are the most important things under don't mess up. The second category is to complete ongoing initiatives. So we have a number of initiatives on the table, many of which started by Dr. Boquillan. And these are not, pie in the sky, I'm leaving initiatives. These are the bread and butter initiatives that we need to move the school forward. And any candidate come in has to, in my view, be able to continue with these initiatives and see them to fruition in midstream, which is not always the easiest thing to do. The third thing is to have the vision to be able to develop and implement collaboratively a ongoing vision for the district. So first you don't screw it up, then you continue the initiatives we have, and then you have your vision moving forward that you do collaboratively. That's the third criteria. And the fourth criteria has 2 parts. The first one is increase the in-district appreciation of the Minuteman opportunity among all of our districts, so that all the children know about this opportunity and all the families are willing to take advantage of it if it is appropriate for their kid. The other one is I label aspirational, because it kind of goes beyond the mandate. And I don't think that most candidates could do it. And here's aspirational. Improve statewide understanding of the benefits of the career tech approach to education, so that our state comprehensive schools would seriously consider adopting some career technical practices that would greatly improve the education and life of all students. I've been a teacher at Newton South High School for 23 years, the same time I've been on the school committee here. I've known a lot of kids there who would have benefited enormously, not necessarily from coming here, but for having a school that adopted some of the practices that are very common in these type of schools. That's one of the things that both Kevin talked about and Kathleen talked about. The fact that traditional high schools should adopt some of our practices. And that would benefit us too, because then we would be more accepted. If the traditional schools understood us better and adopted some of our practices, then we wouldn't look so foreign to the parents and to the communities when students come here. And by that criteria, I think in my mind, this was at the end an easy choice. Because I think that based upon her history and her ambition, Kathleen is, in my view, the strongest candidate for 3 and 4. To be able to implement, not to understand it, but to be able to implement, I think she has the most skills. Now, the one issue I had, and I have this with all candidates, is that when you read their resume or their accomplishments, this is what they put down. And sometimes it's hard to peer behind that and say, did they really accomplish all this? And how much was them and how much was somebody else? And that's always something that concerns me a little bit. It's hard to peer behind that, even though I think that our questions did quite a good job of doing so. And you can't ask them about everything they did on their resume. That's impossible. But what really pushed me into Camp Kathleen was her answer to what seemed to be a very obscure question I asked. Because there's one thing she has on her resume here, which is fairly obscure that I know really well. She said in a little tiny bullet point, design a comprehensive pre-K to 12 computer science blueprint for the district. I have 50 years programming experience, a master's degree in computer science, and 20 years developing curriculum and teaching computer science at the high school level. So I asked her, could you explain to me in detail what you did for this? Or what was the curriculum? What was the high school part of the curriculum? And she gave an answer which was spot on. Which if you were just like a person writing a bullet item down, you wouldn't have a clue about it. So that was really good. But what really caught my attention was what she said later. She said, you know, and she did this a lot of times. She made a comment and then you thought she was done. And then she said, oh, kind of, oh yeah, or just by the side. And here's what she said by the side, which really got to me. And in order to understand this, you have to know that there are 2 AP computer science programs. One is the standard programming program, and another is, I forget the word that they use for it. Well, there's another word for it. It's kind of a fluffy program. So there's a hardcore programming one and the fluffier one. And I don't teach the fluffier one. I taught the more hardcore one. And she said, and this is what she said, what really got me. She said that they take that other program and they make it available to the students at the high school as an entry gateway for this underprivileged students to get into computer science. And the reason that was so important to me was one of the problems in getting underprivileged students into computer science program is they don't come in with a background in computer science in high school like the other students do. So they're not enthusiastic about it. They don't know it. They don't have a basis in it to start the hardcore stuff. But she had already thought about the idea of how do I get the underprivileged students interested in it when they come into high school, even if they didn't have that background. And she did this almost as an aside. So she was thinking, not only did she understand this program, but she was thinking, how can I extend it to a wider range of students who in most places wouldn't have a chance to do it by setting up this particular program as a gateway to allow them to come into it. So for all of those reasons, I have many more. Needham votes for Kathleen Dawson. I'm very happy to do so. Thank you.
I'd like to acknowledge that Dave O'Connor has joined us. Thank you, Dave. you know, I know that you have been listening remotely. We're going to finish going around and then we'll come back to you. So you'll have a chance to give your comments as well. But I'm going to do Ford first and then I'll go to you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Pam. Like my friend Alice, you're all my friends, but Alice wrote it out and I write everything out when I do this in front of town meetings and everything. That way I don't make a stupid mistake. So I try to stay on track. So I'm going to read my comments. My decision pathway on who of our 3 finalists will be my choice for superintendent director started with a review of the school committee superintendent profile, which was developed by 2 school committee retreats over 2 calendar years. How did each finalist meet the profile objectives? And that's what we told the candidates. We told all of them, the applicants, we're basing our decision on the profile. In summary, I feel we have in our finalists 2 acceptable candidates for that position based on the profile. The conclusion for me, after being present at all information/interview sessions with Minuteman staff, community members, and our comprehensive school committee interview, and after reviewing the finalists' submitted written material, after reviewing the reference checks, after reviewing comments from staff and other members of the Minuteman family, I have come to the conclusion that Mr. Kevin McCaskill and Dr. Kathleen Dawson are the right leaders to continue to move Minuteman forward. They checked off all 9 of the categories of our superintendent profile, and I sort of graded them arbitrarily, but nothing below 80% for every category. Both finalists are acceptable to me to serve Minuteman going into the future. That said, I think it is important for me to recommend my preference for the position of superintendent director. In so doing, I'm not saying the other 2 finalists did not also meet many of the traits that I will mention in my endorsement, because they have, and they do. I just feel that Dr. Kathleen Dawson checks off all the school committee priorities outlined in the superintendent profile to my satisfaction. Observing Dr. Dawson's interactions with the 3 students ambassadors at lunch on the tour, I saw a sincere connection between Dr. Dawson and the students, which really brings me to go in a little different path and say a public thank you to River Ariel, Jack Bradbury, and Alice Dalton. You 3 are awesome representatives of Minuteman students, and this school committee cannot thank you enough for working with us. Dr. Dawson acknowledged all students and staff that she passed in the halls with a hi or a wave, and definitely more so in classrooms she entered. Where possible, she engaged in conversations with teachers and students. In the in-person Zoom session with the staff, was both in-person and Zoom, with the staff, she engaged in conversations with the questioners and answered their questions based on her experience. After the session, some staff members even came up and spent some time with her, talking with her. With the Zoom 5 p.m. meeting with parents, staff, alumni, and program advisory members, she connected with the attendees and answered their questions and comments. She was very comfortable in that environment. In all cases, her answers again were based on her experiences and observations. Because of my role in this process and the time I spent with Dr. Dawson one-on-one, I found her engaging and inquisitive about Minuteman. She was excited about the prospect of continuing the work that still needs to be done at Minuteman for the campus and for the students, and continuing the advancement of our academy model. Those were very important things to her. More than once, she expressed her excitement, her real excitement at the prospect of being on the Minuteman team. Speaking of experiences, she had a wide range of educational administrative positions in Eastern Massachusetts, North Carolina, and Tennessee. I believe that a diverse range of experiences is very important for Minuteman. It will introduce new ideas and innovations for us to grow on. Many of us would like to see a more diverse student body, especially with a desire to grow our female population and to combine that with ethnic and racial diversity. In her interview, Dr. Dawson made a commitment to be actively involved in that objective. This will take being out in our district, engaging with our parents, school administrators, guidance counselors, government leaders, and others on a regular basis. Dr. Dawson has a proven experience creating legislative initiatives, interacting with industry leaders, and developing financial opportunities for the schools that she's been involved in. We need our next superintendent to be out in our wider community, developing all opportunities for students. This again means meeting and talking with business associations, corporate leaders, alumni, college administrators, and others, all on a regular basis. Finally, Dr. Dawson gave the school committee a draft of her proposed entry plan if she is selected and contracted as our superintendent. That was not solicited nor expected, but it showed forward thinking and her commitment to the job at Minuteman. I would like to say, to digress a little bit, that I value greatly the role and professional skills of Dr. Amy Perrault. She's an integral part of the Minuteman family. We received letters of recommendations, a reference, positive comments on Dr. Perrault's leadership, management skills, commitment to Minuteman staff and students. We know all of these are true. Her skills around working with students on IEPs, her management skill of strengthening our guidance department was praised by many. She was a leader in developing our academy education model, which is the foundation of our new building and our campus design. She has taken on human resource responsibilities and led the reorganization of the administrative office. I anticipate that these examples are just a small tip of the iceberg of what she can accomplish at Minuteman going forward. In closing, I want to reiterate that my recommendation to this committee is Dr. Kathleen Dawson. She represents the future for Minuteman's continued pathway to academic excellence to our students and preparing students to be workforce ready for their careers that will bring them success. And I have no doubt that she will support and work with our Minuteman teachers and all staff members as they continue to work on behalf of our students.
So I will say we are very fortunate to have the candidates that we had apply and interview. I found it very difficult to differentiate and rank who would be best because they're all equally qualified in their own right. I went to certain topics and things that rang true for me, and found that I ended up stack ranking the individuals and literally changed my mind halfway through the ranking process. So things like the number of additional programs and future thinking. There were great discussions and topics brought up by each candidate and how they would go about sourcing new programs and advancing CTE. You know, the other thing that I struggled with was just the number of individuals we have on IEPs, and you know, each person presented a different take on how to go with that. But when it really boiled down to it, I came down to Amy Perrault and Dr. Dawson as my ones and twos, and like I said, I toggled back and forth. But my ultimate decision is Dr. Dawson, and partly because of the fact that her proven track record in some of the more advanced programs brought up by Alice and others, she had already thought through and started to look through things like AI, you know, the different programs for computer science. And again, I'm in that industry. And so the fact that she called out cybersecurity, which is a growing area of concern internationally. Again, there were minor differences amongst them. Dr. McCaskill had a number of great initiatives as well, but I found it very difficult to narrow it down. And ultimately, I do think that Dr. Dawson will be the best candidate moving forward. However, to everyone else's point, I think Amy Perrault is a integral part of the culture here. And so that was a big concern of mine. I want to make sure that culture that we currently have is preserved, and that she is given the opportunities as we've talked about that she hasn't yet had. Those opportunities will help groom her to be an excellent superintendent should another opportunity within the Commonwealth become available. And I would support that. So that's kind of how I figured it out and rationalized it. I had piles of notes sitting on my desk before I got here and rushed over here. And I apologize that I got the memo incorrect, but that's how I derived things.
Thank you, Dave. We're glad you made it here. I have 4 single space pages, small type, saying much of which has already been said. So I will spare people and will jump to my summary paragraph. But before that, as everyone has said, I think we are in such a fortunate position to have had such strong candidates. And I too, like many of you, really went back and forth and looking at the strengths of all 3 candidates, and they all bring, so many strengths to the table that, my folder of notes that I was going through and trying to make this, and watched all of our videos, attended all of our interviews and screening committee, as well as, of course, our final interviews. And it wasn't until I took the superintendent profile and then just went person by person and making notes on every single section of the superintendent profile, listing what I saw their strengths, that one candidate stood out for me, and that is Kathleen Dawson. And I believe that Kathleen has the skills, talent, and vision that we are looking for in a new leader for Minuteman. I really appreciate her talk of using a data-based approach in her decision-making. I think her strive for excellence will serve Minuteman well and will motivate all of us in the greater Minuteman community. She's clearly a thought leader in education and CBT education in particular. She's forward-thinking and will ensure that we're not just meeting the needs of Minuteman today, but Minuteman in the future. She talked very articulately about how she would make sure that we are aligned with meeting the needs of our region. Again, she's a very creative thinker. And in particular, I was struck by some of the innovative ways in which she really partnered with the broader community in some of the places in which she has worked, and thinking about new and interesting ways of involving students and serving the community. I believe that she will really be a leader and help us educate our communities, our families, and what CBT education and what Minuteman is all about today and in the future. I really appreciated her plan for how to think about increasing diversity at Minuteman. She has a passion for education, for making teachers feel valued, for caring about kids. And I think that's what we're all about. And I believe that her experience, the qualities, what she presented to us is what we are looking for in our next leader at Minuteman. So I'd like us just to take a breath. I'd like to see if there's anyone who would like to make any additional comments. As I go through all the pages I spared you from here. Just take a moment to see. Jeff?
The only additional comment I would like to make is to assure all the people who participated in this effort by the various meetings or by their comments. I read every single one of them. I watched all the videos and I took all their comments seriously. And after I listened to all their comments, I went through all the materials again. So their comments were not in vain in terms of impacting my thinking, and I think the other members of this committee. So the public had a voice, and that voice was heard as part of this process. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else before we proceed to a motion for the election for the superintendent of schools? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion that Kathleen Dawson be appointed as superintendent of schools for the Minuteman Regional School District, subject to the successful negotiations of a contract of employment mutually agreed to the candidate in the school committee and signed by both parties or their designee.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, but I'm sorry. Any discussion on the motion? Now, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Kathleen Dawson has just been appointed as our new superintendent. I want to again thank everyone. I should announce the motion passed unanimously. I want to thank everyone again who was involved in the process. I want to thank everyone sitting around this table, and a special thank you again to Ford. Ford will be reaching out to all of the candidates. I think we're early enough tonight that he can be reaching out
Yep.
tonight. So anything further?
The only thing that I think probably should be mentioned is we will be starting work on the contract. It will require an executive session out of this group. My guess is it could be next week. It's up to the chair, but I know some people had plans. Maybe we can do it by Zoom. So we possibly can do that. It'll probably be an executive session, however. But we will be reaching out to do that. Pam's asked Steve Ledoux and myself to do that. And
Jennifer.
and with Jennifer and
Yes.
Pam. So we will start that process tomorrow morning.
Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Wow.